Hey, yo.
If I can be serious for a minute.
Oh, yeah. Acknowledge me.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Cheap Pops with Primo, presented by the Sit Down Marks podcast. That's, of course, the Hall of Fame Sit Down Marks podcast. We are in the SportzWire Hall of Fame, the flagship. We are back for another episode of Cheap Pops with Primo. If you missed the last episode, was back in January. We're now March 1st on the heels of the Elimination Chamber, which we'll get into later this episode. But last episode, we talked about core memories in wrestling. And also since then, we have had a few episodes you can check out as well, like DBTT, DB Territory Treasures, or DBTT as I like to call him. He had 2 episodes in the month of February. Rocky King and Ronnie Garvin. You can go back and check those out. Like I always say, DB does a great job with these Territory Treasures. They're about the same length as these Cheap Pops episodes, 15, 20 minutes. Not very long, just a small commute for anybody while you're listening to in the car or whatever. They're all standalone episodes. Turn it on. You learn something. DB always gives a good anecdote, gives a good story, gives his personal take on whoever he's talking about. We also had our last flagship episode on in Best Babyfaces in Wrestling. That was there at the end of February as well. And we do have some more coming up. But first, let's get to Cheap Pops with Primo today. And I know you saw the title, and I know you're thinking, Primo, you are a liar. Well, because the title says gimmick matches are terrible, but really what I mean to say is that was just to draw you in, honestly. I mean, it was clickbait. I apologize. I also hate clickbait, but gimmick matches are terrible live. I don't really like certain ones, and we're going to talk about them. I don't mean all gimmick matches. I imagine a street fight's fine, but let's get down to those. And first off, like I said, we're at the heels of the Elimination Chamber. It literally happened last night as I sit here. So it's fresh on my mind. This is why I'm saying gimmick matches are terrible live. And when I say that, I mean for those that are in attendance, for those that are there in the crowd, whether you're right there in the front row or you're all the way back up in the nosebleeds, I think there's certain matches that are probably just suck to watch there in person. Now, admittedly, I've only been to a Royal Rumble and Monday Night Raws and some house shows. And all the matches I'm about to name, I've never actually seen in person. I've only seen them on TV. But honestly, I think that's the best viewing experience for these certain types of matches. Now, don't get me wrong. I know the title says gimmick matches are terrible. I still love them. I still love gimmick matches. I mean, the viewership, spending your hard-earned cash to get those expensive-ass TKO seats that they're putting out there now. I mean, you can't tell me. That's a whole nother rant. Sorry, Primo was about to get off, on another rant right there.
Yeah!
But I guess I won't. So, back to business here. Let's start with the first gimmick match that I think is probably pretty difficult to both keep track of and really enjoy in person. And that's the one I was just talking about, the Elimination Chamber. Imagine like you're behind, say, the corners of one of the pods. Say you're in the front row or, eye level with the cage, the chamber. And your view is obscured. You're not having a whole lot of view from like what's going around the cage, because especially if there's somebody still in the pod, you're just looking at the person. Now that might give you a personal experience with that particular superstar, but you can't see the rest of the ring and what's happening throughout the thing. The chains, they're just going to distort your depth perception of what's going on, how far away things are. The actions that are inside the pods, whether they're across the chamber or whatever, there's going to be pretty impossible to see unless you're on certain sides of the chamber. So at one point, any given point, you're gonna have a hard time. Like in, I guess that's a lot of matches, but I'd say it's even more your view's even more obscured with the elimination chamber. However, it's like on TV or whatever, wherever we're watching your PLEs these days, they are visually appealing. You can see everything, which that's obviously what it's made for. But the live audience obviously is not going to have as good of a vantage point. Even the people that are way up there, and they have a hard enough time seeing anyway. So, and I've been there. You're going to end up watching mostly the TV, which excuse me, the big screen above the ring is what I mean, and that's how you're probably going to keep track of the whole thing. Which at that point, why not just stay home? You're just there for the vibes, I guess. But it's definitely built for TV instead of the live television audience. So that one's a hard one for me to justify spending money on going to, if that makes sense. I could just sit here at the old Primo battle station and watch it on one of my 3 monitors, and just enjoy it with a cold beer in my hand as I do it. That's not highly upcharged because I'm in an arena. Next up, let's get to another gimmick match. I actually love this match, but same thing as the chamber. I think that it'd be kind of hard to watch. I've never seen one in person, but I think it'd be hard to watch in person, and that is the Hell in the Cell match. Now, here in the Primo household, me and my son, we call it Heck in a Sec, but that's for another day. So anyway, Hell in a Cell match, of course, especially the red one they were using for a while there. That's just visually brutal. That sucks to look at. The light just reflecting off everything. If you're down at the floor level, right, and they inevitably climb to the top of the cage, to the top of the Hell in a Cell, then the watching them from the outside is gonna be cool, but once they get to the top, you're just like, okay, you're kind of guessing at what's going on. So it's not as bad as the Elimination Chamber, but you're still gonna have those obscured views. You're still gonna have the moments where you're not going to have a clue what's going on because you can't even see whether it's the Hell in the Cell in the way or they're in the other side of the freaking big ass open area that they have staged there for the Hell in the Cell, because they have the ring, then they have the cell around it, or they're on the outside up on top of it. Wherever it is, somebody in the arena that paid their hard-earned money is going to have a hard time seeing what's going on. And I think the same thing with the nosebleeds. When they're in a cage, whether it's the chamber or the Hell in the Cell, you're just going to have a hard time seeing through the cage into the ring. I think the same thing when I watch UFC and people are, all the way up there watching a UFC fight. Like, how are you keeping up with these dudes grappling on the ground, doing ground and pounder submissions, besides watching it on the screen that's above going on? So at that point, like I said already, if you're going to watch it on the screen, unless you're just there for vibes, which I'm not going to tell a grown up what to do with their money, but I personally don't just pay for vibes. I pay for a whole experience, but I'd rather stay home if I'm just going to be watching it on the screen anyway. So that's my take on the Elimination Chamber and the Hell in the Cell. Let's get to another one that's really super specific, but it actually happened. The point of reference here would be a stadium show. Let's look at a stadium show, outdoors, daytime, trying to watch a ladder match. And you're down on the ground level of everything, trying to look up as they're climbing the ladders. The sun is just shining in your eyes. You're freaking hot. You are blinded, like I just said, by the sun. Everything is gonna be just chaos, because another thing about ladder matches is every single time somebody climbs up that ladder, everybody in that arena, stadium, whatever have you, they're all going to stand up. So you might have paid to see a ladder match, but you might end up watching about 40% of it out of, the guy in front of you watching it through the Stone Cold vest that he's wearing. So it's just one of those things where if you don't like to stand up a lot or you like to sit a lot, I don't care either way on that one. That was just personal preference on your part. But I think mostly about the outside one, which we know DB has talked about in the past. He doesn't care for outdoor events, but this is one where I would agree. I love a ladder match, but if I'm looking up trying to see him win the match and I just see the sun beaming in my eyes, burning my freaking eyeballs, that might be a problem. But, I think overall that one can still be enjoyable to a point. It's not as bad as the last two where your view is just completely obscured, but it still has its inconveniences, I guess you could call them. It's just about what you're willing to pay for. And the last match that I want to talk, there are more, definitely more, but the last match that I want to talk about is the Falls Count Anywhere, the last Gimmick match. Falls Count Anywhere is cool. It's a good idea. It's a cool idea. We all know what it means. Well, if you don't, then I don't know if you're a wrestling fan, or why you're listening to this. But let me break it down for you, I guess. The match can be won at anywhere in the arena, stadium, building. It can be won in the ring, on the stage, on the ramp, in the crowd, backstage, in the freaking boiler room, in the parking lot. It can be won anywhere. This is one of those ones that on TV, it's great. On TV, watching it, you love the chaos of it. But if you're there live, it's more like you're constantly playing hide and seek with the competitors. You're constantly trying to, if they start to brawl out in the crowd, and you are like you're opposite side of the building or opposite side of the arena from them, and they're in the other side where the crowd's at. Good luck trying to find them, because everybody's going to be like looking at them, but it's just going to be hard to keep up with, except once again watching that screen. If they go backstage or in the parking lot, once again, you have to watch it on the screen. So might as well just stayed home at that point anyway. However, the caveat to this is that if they end up coming into your section, suddenly you could become an inadvertent obstacle or unknowing, just somehow participant. I'm not saying you're going to end up wrestling, but you could end up having somebody thrown on you or at you or near you or at your feet, or they could take your drinks and drink it or throw it in the face of the other guy, steal your popcorn, all that cool stuff. That's cool. That's why we love, one of the things we love about being a wrestling fan. That part is awesome. I will say as from a personal experience, and this wasn't even a match, this was just an entrance. But when I was at Royal Rumble 22 with DB and AJ, we were there when Seth Rollins came out to the Shield music, and I feel like everybody in the crowd was like, wait, where the fuck is he? Where's Seth Rollins? We're all looking around to try to find the guy, and we finally found him. So I feel like that's how it would be in a Falls Count Anywhere match. And this is one of those ones that would be better suited for television. But you guys might have some more gimmicks. Sorry about my voice. I'm coming off of sickness, so if you turn it off because of that, I apologize. But upcoming this month, we do have something very important in the month of March. If you've been a fan of the podcast, then you would know that March is anniversary month for us. So this year is our big 5-year anniversary of the Sit Down Marks podcast. Hopefully my voice is back to normal by then. Can't wait for that. Of course, we always got other things coming on. We'll be, releasing other things as well and recording other things this in the month of March as well. Thank you so much for coming along for another Cheap Pops with Primo. I know you may not have agreed with every take I said here, and that's fine. I don't expect you to. But some of these matches, definitely, the gimmicks are spectacles, but I'd say the spectacle itself doesn't always equal the live experience of what you're going to pay for. So it's, that's just something, when I've never thought about it, like, as far as, if I'm buying a ticket, what's on the card, but definitely something to take into consideration. If you're buying, say, tickets for one of the Gimmick pay-per-views, like Elimination Chamber or Hell in a Cell, whatever, then at least two of the matches on the card are going to be difficult to watch as an in-person viewer. Once again, I want to thank everybody for coming for another Cheap Pops with Primo, presented by the Sit Down Marks podcast. And as DB always says, spread the good word of wrestling.